Senior political analyst. Brit, great to have you with us in New York. Thank you so much for being here tonight. You know, so I heard that thread running through a lot of what was said today, that these fires have been stoked for a long time. You heard Maxine Waters, telling people to get up in someone's face. Eric Holder saying you got to kick people. All of this language that, I certainly didn't grow up with hearing from politicians, that has really become so bitter and so angry. Does that all lead to what we saw on January 6th? Or
Martha, I think it does in this sense. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we are divided as a nation politically more than we have ever been, at least any time in my lifetime. I remember very well the divisive days of the Vietnam War and the extraordinary passions that conflict brought to the surface. It wasn't as bad as this. This is as bad as it gets, as bad as it's ever gotten, perhaps since the Civil War. And so the challenge for leaders in a time like this is, how do we tamp this down? How do we, find places to agree? Because this is poisonous to our country. And certainly some of the things that Democrats did in the aftermath of President Trump's election have not contributed in any positive way to that job. So the question now is for the leaders we have. For President Trump himself, who took a stab at it today. It may have been, as many are saying, too little, too late. And now it falls, of course, to incoming President Biden, who has the enormous challenge of trying to be a healer at a time of the utmost divisions in the wake of this hideous event that happened last week. It's a terrific challenge. It remains to be seen if he's up to it. Yeah.
Should he have spoken out more already? When he did speak out, he spoke mostly of, sort of racial imbalance and saying that if the protesters had been African American, it would have looked really different on January 6th. That didn't work out that well.
Well, there are a lot of people in this country that believe that, that we are a nation of systemic racism, but there are a great many who believe we are not. And it's a point of deep division in this country. So why he would choose on that occasion to feed that, I think, is a good question. He has the job now of trying to unify things. One way he could do it, it seems to me, is if he could call off the impeachment dogs, but it may now be too late for that. It is certainly the case, Martha, that this impeachment, whatever you may think of whether he deserved it or would have deserved it more, or would have been a better idea maybe a year ago if something like this had happened, it's worth remembering that the principal purpose, the reason we have an impeachment clause in our system, is to get a president who has done bad things out of office. That is something that's going to happen by itself. The voters took care of that back in November. So one can certainly ask the question of whether having the impeachment and trying to get a conviction now adds to our divisions or eases them.
Yep. I mean, do you think that it inspires some of these, some of these Trump supporters who, have been violent? I mean, 99% of them are law-abiding, good people. But when he, continues to speak out and sort of holds the fire, and when he's attacked with impeachment, does that rile people up even more? Are they working at cross purposes?
My own view of this, Martha, is that the problem here was not so much what Trump said on the ellipse last week. He even indicated that he wanted to go peacefully to Capitol Hill to make their voices heard. The problem was what he had fed to his supporters in the weeks since the election, stoking in their minds the suspicion that this election was illegitimate, that it had been stolen from him, that he had actually won in a landslide. And on top of that, he made the false claim that Mike Pence could somehow, in his ministerial job of the participation in the counting of the votes, have reversed the result or halted the result of the election. None of that was true, not any of it. And here we had a crowd of people who had been fed that for weeks on end. And think about it, if you were a Trump supporter and you didn't really know all the details, but he had told you repeatedly and at length that the election had been stolen from you, you might be in some kind of a rage as well. So that was where he went wrong. It was in the bunkum that he fed to these people over a period of weeks that I think got them stirred up and made this possible.
I think you're absolutely right.
Not directly, but indirectly.
One man that Griff Jenkins spoke to just sticks in my mind, Britt. And this man said, well, the president told us that Mike Pence was going to overturn the election today, but I just heard it's not true. And he was angry. And I thought, that nails it. That's it
people
right
were chanting,
there.
Hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence did what he had to do, and he did the right thing.
Yeah, he sure did.